It's a new Kirblog and it's a review of Let's Go Pikachu with some information on if the game is for you. Welcome back. It's the last week of Pokecember. Hope you guys are all having a lovely holiday season. This is the last one I'm going to do, the last Pokemon-themed Kirblog for the month, and the second to last Kirblog I'll be doing of the entire year. So, I figured what better way to go out. I'm sure you guys are all probably knee-deep in playing Smash right now. And much like with many people, it's like the second Ultimate dropped. It's like, oh, Pokemon Let's Go, what's that? Oh, yeah, sure, whatever, But still, I wanted to keep it, consistent to what I've been talking about in the meantime, so I figured, why not talk a little bit about this game that I was kind of unexpectedly looking forward to. Let me to explain what that means. I wasn't entirely sure, how excited I was or not about the prospect of Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but this is actually something that I have wanted for a really, really long time, and I'd completely forgotten that it was something that I had been hoping for, and it delivered tenfold. So this is actually a mostly pretty positive review, but I'm just going to kind of go through my thoughts on all the main features and everything. So this, of course, being specifically a remake, kind of more reimagining, if anything, of Pokemon Yellow, specifically with having a partner Pokemon like Pikachu and having Eevee, who in the original game, of course, was your rival's go-to starter Pokemon as opposed to one of the originals, the Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur. An interesting concept to begin with. I actually did like the fact that they had alternatives, because of course Pikachu is he's Pikachu. He is the face known around the world in every country imaginable. But I think also for hardcore Pokemon fans that do also like just alternatives to the the usual stuff, I think that Eevee was a fitting, even beyond its ties to Yellow as the opposing Pokemon. I think that it worked out pretty well, and it was interesting to see that kind of in accordance with that, the rival character always has Jolteon as the Eevee evolution. If you are playing Let's Go Pikachu, which I was, just so like the rival always has like a powerful electric type as kind of your competing rival starter, as it were. But yeah, as far as I guess starting with the old, this was the map of Kanto was almost a 1-to-1 remake of all the original maps, with probably the exception of the dungeons, because I'm sure there's probably some differences in how they were laid out between all of the different versions. It's so interesting too, because now this is technically the second remake of the original game, and having played Fire Red and Leaf Green again about a year ago around this time for the previous year of Pokecember, I was reminded of, it's funny because I played that specifically because I felt, I don't want to go back and play the original Red, Blue, or Yellow on the eShop, because if I'm going to replay this game, I kind of want to play it with the better graphics and the updated battle system and everything. But this was kind of a breath of fresh air, because I realized also that upon replaying Fire Red and Leaf Green, I know, or my Fire Red copy that is, I know of course that there's some divisiveness between how easy people perceive the current gen Pokemon games to be compared to the previous ones. Maybe this is just from the fact that like I have less time and more responsibilities and other things I could be spending on beyond just playing video games. Not that I don't love playing video games, and I've been very happy to have had time to play a lot more games in the last several months compared to how much I have as of late. I actually appreciate the fact that it is a much quicker experience. We were actually a little worried. Amy and I played the entire game co-op, which I'll get to that as far as the new stuff goes. We were a little worried we might not be able to finish everything by the time Smash came out, which we finished most of everything by the time Smash came out, and we just completed the last couple little extra bits we wanted to go through by the time that Ultimate was well underway and everything, with us playing through all that stuff. But yeah, so having a much easier leveling up system, I think, was in terms of just the quickness of how much you can level characters up and not having to grind or anything, or at least to progress through the main story. Grinding, of course, is still necessary, but I'll get to that again. As far as the old stuff goes, I don't necessarily miss the Safari Zone as far as taking out some of the old features. I'm fine with seeing some of that stuff go. Team Rocket, of course, being in there. If anything, I actually kind of wish that there was more Team Rocket in there. One of the things that I loved about the later Pokemon games was how they kind of had some influence from the anime in terms of having characters like show up more than one time, and you kind of get to know some of the gym leaders. And there was certainly a little bit of that. There were some moments with like Misty and Brock showing up very briefly, and some other little things that seemed in reference to the anime, like having Officer Jenny give you the Squirtle that's been making trouble. It seemed like there was the girl who gives you the Bulbasaur. It looks a little bit like the girl from the episode with Bulbasaur that Ash gets, and she has an Oddish in her house and that whole kind of thing. So there were some parallels, and I like that. I like that Team Rocket had a little bit more attention and definitely some funny dialogue in there. But after that last scene that they have on the beach, Fuchsia City, they don't seem to show back up again, which I was kind of sad about. I wasn't expecting Giovanni to be back, because that ties a little bit more into the Gold and Silver stuff afterward. But yeah. As far as the new stuff goes, so I'll say this. As some of you guys may or may not know, I have not touched Pokemon Go before. So I understood some, from people that had played it and, had their, reservations. I understood why there was a little bit of uneasiness between the fandom in terms of how this was going to go. I will say this. I actually am completely okay, and not only am I okay with it, but I have been enjoying the hell out of the new catching mechanic. I can't speak for how easy or difficult or what the experience is like with it in Go specifically, because also the entire time I did it with motion control. I never once did it on the screen, so I wasn't experiencing like dragging your finger and flicking the ball or whatever. Sorry, but I did it entirely with the motion controls, and admittedly it did get. It took a little bit of getting used to. There were some moments, especially early on, where I didn't quite understand like if the Pokemon was moving to the left or right of aiming it in a way that would actually get it or whatever. But we eventually figured it out, and actually it was pretty fun to catch Pokemon together with the co-op mode and everything, kind of throwing them in sync and having like the added percentage of being able to catch it or not. So that was great. And I will say the fact that you get even more experience from catching a lot. Certainly, probably the biggest thing of all is having the creatures on the overworld. Thank God for that. In fact, I'm not expecting it, but that is a feature that I hope is consistent now throughout the rest of the mainline series. It may not. Mike Lucas pointed out that might be billed as like an exclusive feature of Let's Go, much like how each of the individual generations' main games tend to have like. Specific things like the Pokemon contests and, that kind of thing, like specific to each generation or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't, but it made hunting for Pokemon and, the fact that basically all of that stuff, the new catching mechanic, having them on the overworld, the amount of experience that you get, making it, as far as I know, a little easier to catch, shinies, comparatively, I guess. It makes catching lots and lots and lots of wild Pokemon a lot more fun. Way easier to level everybody up, way easier to, kind of get everything along with that. I'm very, very pleased with that. That was probably one of the biggest highlights of the entire game. As far as other new things go, the new rival character I thought was all right. I know, again, some people seem to be kind of divisive on, whether they miss the, the original rival character, who, of course, technically blue/green, whatever you want to identify him as, is in the game, and he's still got his snark to him and everything. But I don't know. I don't necessarily miss or care that much, I guess, in general, like whether the rival character is a jerk to you or not. That wasn't like a selling point to me, I guess, with the games. And Trace, I guess, is what he's sort of called, like his basic name. He was fine, I liked that they kind of utilized him a little bit more than the rival character in general. Like he was a little bit more around to be a consistent character and hang out with you and have different interactions with you. And it's interesting because he's a little bit more like the types like Wally or Hao, who's like they're always kind of one step behind you, or sometimes they're a step ahead of you, but often they wind up being behind you in the end. But I didn't mind him too much. And then as far as the co-op stuff goes, that was another big... Actually, that was probably the thing that definitely made me want to buy the game. Because so we didn't do this last year when Amy and I were doing a lot of the Pokecember Kirblogs for the previous year. But when Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon came out, we actually both got copies of those, and we played the entire games literally side by side which was something that I've wanted to do with just anybody for a really long time. We had fun going through like what the different versions differences were like, and we did like our little check-in rival battles after we completed each of the 4 islands. But we didn't. The reason we didn't end up doing like a full kind of Kirblog review of Ultra is because unfortunately, the game itself was not that much more interesting or different, and felt kind of like meh by the time we were done with it. In fact, I actually didn't even end up, in frustration, I quit the final battle against Giovanni and the Team Rainbow Rocket post-game content because I just wasn't into it. And by the end, we were like, we're kind of done with this. So it just kind of left like an taste in our mouths. Like, still enjoyable because it's as good as any Pokemon game, but just wasn't that much more than the original Sun and Moon. So that's why we skipped out on doing a full review of it or anything. But with this one, despite the fact that it was cooperative and not versus or whatever, we haven't had a battle with each other because we shared the same team, which is what we did. We kind of took 3 Pokemon each that we kind of claimed as our own for each battles, and we trade off. That was a really, really enjoyable experience. Like, something about that was more enjoyable than having like a competitive side-by-side experience, I would say. So yeah, we really enjoyed that. Truthfully, doing the co-op mode for most of the main story mode kind of makes everything really, really easy because you always have like a second attack to split up between your partner. But it was still fun just to like go through everything together, and and definitely made the catching enjoyable too. That was fun, kind of trying to time up the throwing motions and everything. I'll get more into the collecting side of things in a bit here, but this is the first time in a while where, like, because of how fun the catching mechanic was, like I was saying before, and especially doing it together, this is the first time since the original version of the game that I have wanted to collect all 150, in this case 153 because of Meltan and Melmetal, that I've wanted to actually do that. Actually, while we're on the subject, let's just get to the collecting side of things. Yeah, overall, a lot more fun, especially with the co-op. I will say this, now that I've learned about how you have to get Melmetal and you have to transfer it from the game and the way that you get it from Go in the first place, I'm like, oh, well, that makes me a lot less motivated to actually want to complete the Pokedex now, because we currently have, I think, 140 collected. Like, we're very close to completing the whole thing. But yeah, in truth, like, I'm not nearly as inclined, just because, I guess, to get those extra couple too at the end, just because of how I think you have to get like 100 Meltans collected in a Go or something like that, and we had enough difficulty just catching the single Meltan that we transferred over from her copy of Go on her phone. So we were like, not as fun, but the actual process of it is super fun. And it's funny because we didn't end up pursuing this too hard. She might do this on her own time at some point, but because I don't know too much about like shiny hunting. But apparently, if you get the shiny charm after you complete the Pokedex and you get all 153 Pokemon, then after I guess a 30+ catch combo, you get a 1 in 273 chance, which is still a lot. But apparently, that's a lot easier than usual to actually find a shiny in that sense, compared to other Pokemon games where it's like 1 in 1,000 something or some kind of massive 4-digit number, and I'm like, I'm going to skip out on that feature. But overall, like, I think compared to any other previous game, I would be more inclined to at least try doing it. And I did try it once when I was grinding our team to, be able to fight against Red, which I'll get to the post-game content stuff in a second here. I went to the Cerulean Cave and tried to catch like a shiny Rhydon, so I fought like 30 of them, and I was having a good time. But even by 35 or whatever, and I still wasn't seeing anything, I was like, all right, this aspect maybe isn't quite for me. But yeah, then as far as the post-game content stuff goes, I overall, this was all stuff that I was pretty much into. Sometimes the post-game Pokemon stuff is a little bit hit or miss for me, even since the old days. But I did really like, this should have been a simple thing to do, but the Gym Leader and Elite Four rematches, those are always fun to see what their new updated super teams are. It's funny, especially because of the limitations of, there's only so many Pokemon in this generation to draw from. So you'll see a lot of repeats between gym leaders and things, and especially with some of the ones where the types that are available are there's only the 3 ghost types and 3 dragon types, etc. But that was always fun just to get a little bit more leverage out of the gym leader characters because they're always a pleasure to see. The master trainer thing, I think, they can be a little frustrating, but I think conceptually they're very cool. And the 6 that we did so we could fight Red at the end were fun, kind of solving, how to overcome this super powerful, like perfect move set version of this Pokemon we had to fight against. I probably wouldn't go out of my way to fight against absolutely every single one of them necessarily. All the ones that you can fight against, there are some that are kind of like a little bit different, but it was a fun little romp to do that, like leading up to the fight with Red, which that was the stuff that was really cool to me. Getting to fight Red, Blue, and Green, these versions of them that are pretty akin to the way that they are in Pokemon Adventures in particular. Not one-to-one, because of course, Blue is a little more serious, and Red actually speaks in the manga. But it was certainly cool to see kind of elements of their teams from... It was interesting because their teams were kind of like combinations of the Pokemon that they have in the manga, and then also some of the teams that like Red and Blue particularly have in like Fire Red and Leaf Green. Like they had kind of elements of both of those. But it was really fun getting to fight against all of them. I think you can fight against each of them a few different times throughout the game. But that was a neat little feature. Definitely a cool addition of having them in there, especially because there's a little bit of, I don't want to say revisionist history type thing with like, you're in place of what they were doing in the original game, but, what they've done still exists. You're living out some of the things that they did, and they still are, the pillars of great Pokemon trainers that they are in the scope of the world. So, yeah, and then overall, aesthetically, the entire game is gorgeous. Like the graphics are beautiful, all the luscious environment, the models are really nice, all the animations with the characters and everything. The trainer designs are all really fun. I feel like with some of the certain ones and some of the facial expressions and animations, I was like, there's a little bit of risque, weird stuff in there once in a while that I'm like scratching my head at, I guess. But they're all very cute and fun, and pretty cool designs. I like the sort of it seems to be kind of like a cross between like the really early concept art, some of the cues that they took for the designs, and then bits of the current way that the Pokemon human characters tend to look. The music, all the remixes of all the music tracks are phenomenal sounding, like with the full orchestra and all that. And just overall, the experience, it was just addicting. Like I really looked forward to playing it with Amy like every single day, like when we got it. And the funny thing is, like this was kind of like, this was the 3D remake that I have always wanted since I was a kid, because I can seriously think, all the way back to the N64 when they were still just doing, add-ons and remakes or not remakes, like spin-offs and all these things with just the Gen 1 stuff. Like even as far back as that, I really wanted to see a 3D version of the original Red and Blue as far back as even just the N64. So to see it like this, even further along with all these extra new cool things that they added in there for the Switch version and everything, this is exactly what I wanted. So it's funny, like the kind of big takeaway from this, and if Amy were here to be part of the review, I'm sure we're very busy with the Christmas stuff and everything, of course. But the biggest thing that I was reminded of at the apex of playing through this game is, and both of us agree on this, is Pokemon is just one of those things. I never want Pokemon to end. Like, I will never, ever get tired of this franchise. I will never get tired of all these characters and the games and the show and just everything. Like, everything about this franchise just puts a smile on my face. It inspires new creativity within me. I adore it. And Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee, I think were kind of like a reminder of how much that I love. Not just for like the nostalgic reasons of, it's a Gen 1 remake, but like overall it reminded me of how much I love this franchise, and I hope that it never ever goes away. So this is going to kind of wrap up Pokecember 2018. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will say with some sadness, please, if you made it through this and you listened to all these, go back to last week's Kirblog that I did with the interview with Michael Hagney, who is the original voice director for the first few seasons of the Pokemon anime series. I'm really proud of that interview, and it didn't actually do that well when we put it out. So please go back, and if you missed out on it, go take a listen to that one, because I'm really happy that I got to sit down with him, and it's a Kirblog that I was very just gratified that I got to do in the first place. So go check that out. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this. I didn't have much streaming to do because, of course, I finished all the Tome Kickstarter stuff. But I do have one more Kirblog that I'm going to do before the year is finished. If it all goes well, I believe it will be an interview with somebody. And if it goes well, it will not be an interview with Datafer, but with somebody else, kind of along those lines. I'll let you try to guess as to what that means. But yeah, that'll be out next weekend. In the meantime, I hope you all had a lovely holiday season. I'm about to go off and take my little Christmas break. I'm actually going to be doing some writing, not on the Tome game. Actually, by the time this is coming out, I'm hoping that I will have hit a major milestone of finishing writing the entire Tome script, because I'm very, very close to being done at the time that I'm recording this. This is a couple days beforehand. I'll be probably on a plane by the time that you are listening to this. But so I hope you enjoyed this year's Pokecember. Leave some comments below on your thoughts on Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and let me know what your team was, any favorite moments or any epic battles that you had throughout the game. Suggestions for future Kirblog topics for 2019 as we're about to enter into the new year. And otherwise, and the usual stuff of follow me on Twitter and stay subscribed and all the usual crap. I'll be back very soon, and 2019 is going to be a good year for me, for my voice work, for continuing on the Tome game, for animation, for a lot of things, possibly some new ventures. You'll learn more about that in due time. But thanks a bunch, everybody. Happy holidays, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.